The commanding Bay of Fundy is a natural wonder, with gorgeous, fertile land set alongside the highest tides in the world. Taming this coastline hundreds of years ago was an act of incredible human ingenuity. With the harnessing of this landscape, so began a delicate dance with nature and water. Where there's water, there's potential, but there's also worry. We are deeply connected to nature, from old forests to rugged coastlines, the tiniest wonders and vast open spaces. It's where we come from and what we share with all living things. It's time to rediscover the wild.
This natural landscape there's almost no words to describe it.
You're right. Its color and its texture, and it also gets me thinking about that relationship between nature and what people do, which is culture.
Dr. Jonathan Fowler is a renowned archaeologist at St. Mary's University, whose research interests include early colonial Atlantic Canada.
This is an area called Hortonville. It's sometimes called Grand Pre. This area in the Acadian period was called Vieux-Logis, so it's the old place. This river that we're sitting next to is the river that the first Acadian immigrants would have used to come here. This area behind me was all tidal marsh, so this whole thing was wetland, about 3,000 acres of it. This wall was not here. This is a modern dike wall. It would have just been a gradual slope up the riverbank, mud, onto a lightly rolling plain of waving grassland. Twice a day, the salt water would come in. All of the creeks would have been teeming with fish. It was a very bountiful natural environment. Super productive for indigenous people as a habitat for fish and also wildfowl. But of course, to the farmers, they thought,
Right.
hay, crops. What they saw was opportunity, because the first thing that you need to do if you're a farmer in that period is you need to feed your cattle. But they also realized that if they built dikes, they could enclose some of that, turn it into arable farmland, and plant crops. Gradually, over the course of about 70 years, something like 3,000 acres was enclosed. I'm astounded by the scope of their work.
So we're really on the bridge. We're at the interaction between nature and humans.
Absolutely, we are directly there. This was, under here somewhere, was their original dike.
Oh, so it's we're
very
on top
often,
of the
yeah,
original
very often
dike.
old dikes are entombed by these modern ones.
It's quite amazing to be standing here 400 years later.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what they would think after all of that labor to imagine that now we're working to turn it back into wetlands.
Yeah, in some places we are. Not everywhere, of course, but there are places where Mother Nature is taking it back. I think they would have been amazed to learn about sea level rise, which I don't think they were attuned to very well.
With today's challenges of climate change and sea level rise, people are looking at some dikes in different ways. Jonathan is a partner in the Transcoastal Adaptation Center for Nature-Based Solutions, a very talented team whose focus is building climate-resilient coastal ecosystems and communities around wetlands, where willing landowners help make it possible.
We are currently alongside the St. Croix River. The gypsum cliffs here are well known, much loved, and it's just plain a cool place. When you walk into it, the landscape is completely dissimilar to anything else that you see in Nova Scotia. My name's Joanna Skomorowski, and I am the Land Stewardship Manager for the Nova Scotia Nature Trust. The Nature Trust began to have this as a focal area a number of years ago. Gypsum or anhydrite brings with it a really unique landscape. You end up with what's called karst topography. That means the rock is very friable, it crumbles easily, it erodes easily for water, and you end up with features like caves, you end up with disappearing streams, and you end up with sinkholes. Along with it, you get plants that specifically prefer calcareous soil. Those plants, some of them are very, very rare. One of the ones found in this area is the ram's head lady slipper, which is listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act.
The St. Croix area is a globally rare landscape teeming with biodiversity. Much of its natural wetlands have been diked for generations. The team from Transcoastal Adaptations are here today to strategically breach the dike to restore tidal flow through the space and let this tidal wetland return to its natural state.
We connected with the Transcoastal Adaptations Center for Nature-Based Solutions purely by serendipity. One of my colleagues was reading an article in CBC talking about salt marsh restoration. It listed the St. Croix River as one of the priority rivers that they were working on. So I sent an email and said, we have a small parcel of land on the St. Croix River that was previously diked, and we would be interested in seeing it restored to salt marsh. And in less than a year, we've reached today where the actual restoration work is happening.
My name is Tony Bowern. I'm CEO and coastal wetland ecologist with CB Wetlands and Environmental Specialists, which is an environmental consulting company based here in Nova Scotia. It's a lovely 1.5 kilometer wander through the woods. We got this wonderful little meandering path up and over and around to get in here, even just on foot, let alone get our little dozer in to do the work. This project, in addition to the biological, like the biodiversity, the habitat, all of those ecological aspects, aside from that, how the project that we're working on will help people is we're restoring the tidal wetlands. By moving the dikes back, we're allowing a space for those big flood events, a place for the water to go that's not up into the dike lands, that's not up onto the roads. It's improving the resiliency of the overall dike land system in this river by taking the pressure off the other dikes.
It seems to me that it behooves us to adapt some of our approaches, or we may regret it in future storms because of the increasing severity and frequency of them.
It's been quite a production to get all the right people and equipment down alongside the river today. But most of the team has arrived, and they've gotten straight to work on their various tasks.
My name's Kayla Williams. I'm a junior vegetation and wetland ecologist with CB Wetlands and environmental specialist. Today I'm doing some baseline sediment monitoring for the site. So it's a data set that we can look back on once the construction's complete to see what the site looked like beforehand. For tidal marshes, the three main indicators that we look for is the vegetation, the hydrology, and the sediments. The soils and sediments are one of the major components that help us determine the health of a wetland. So we'd like to know what it looks like pre-construction, and then immediately after, and then the years following. We want to ensure it's flush with the marsh surface. And where there's a lot of root matter, we use a knife, break some of it up to make it easier for us to get the core out. Usually, to keep everything in the top, I put the cap on the top first, and I use the knife to help break the bottom out and hold everything in. The dike that we are breaching today has prevented tidal flow from accessing the back portion of the site. Once the site is breached and tidal flow is reestablished, we'll start to see reestablishment of our tidal marsh plants. These are taken back to the lab and processed for water content, organic matter, and the little syringe I'm putting in is for bulk density. So this will tell us about compaction, and the other two will give us an idea of the organic content and how much water is in the sediments. Once our 12 cores are taken here today, they'll go back to the InCoast lab at St. Mary's University. From there, we will have all that information to put into our reports, and we'll do that for the next 5 years.
Much has changed here since dikes were first built in Nova Scotia. And this nature-based solution to a nature-based problem makes a lot of sense to me. But sometimes in restoration, like renovation, things can look worse before they look better. And on this project, it's officially demo day. Tony is leading the charge today, and there's a lot going on. There's baseline data collection, and of course, the excavation.
That's looking perfect. Yeah, that's great. We kind of want to minimize the amount of material that's being pushed into that spot because we kind of want to hold on to that wetland piece there. So if you can kind of pull some of it into here or push it the other way, leave that a little bit. Good, but yeah, otherwise that's perfect. I mean, that elevation there that you're hitting is fantastic. Thank you, sir. This is breach number 1 of 3 that we're making in this old agricultural dike in order to restore tidal flow to this site, reconnect the former marsh to the rest of the river system. So with the dozer, we've marked our endpoints, which the breach is going to be about 60 meters in width, and he's essentially bringing the elevation of that dike down to match the elevation of the foreshore, so that on the next big spring tides, we got nice flow of water coming in, and Mother Nature will do the rest of the work for us. I'm going to check in with the crew here and then head back over to the Argo and start getting that station set up.
They're digging a runnel as well, which will help with the flow of water across the land. The plants that grow behind will change into salt marsh plants or salt-tolerant plants. Tidal wetlands are pretty critical in terms of resilience along the coastlines, resilience along tidal rivers. Wetlands in general are what absorb extra water. Inland wetlands are what prevent our towns and roads from flooding if they're healthy. Coastal wetlands are what prevent the shorelines from eroding and from the ocean flooding too far inland.
The Making Room for Wetlands project is being led by Transcoastal Adaptation's Centre for Nature-Based Solutions, housed at St. Mary's University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. With this project, we're also working closely with the Department of Agriculture, as well as the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq. So we're looking at dike land systems in 5 estuaries throughout the Upper Bay of Fundy, trying to identify those locations within these tidal river systems where there's an opportunity to adjust or find the relief valves within these systems. Many of these tidal rivers have very extensive and long-standing dikes on them. A number of those have not actually really ever been farmed within that 70-year history. And so those present the opportunities for finding those pressure relief valves within the system.
Tony is setting up a piece of equipment that measures the surface elevation of the marsh. He's pounding down rods until they hit bedrock.
We are installing what is called a rod surface elevation table, or RSET for short, because academics love their acronyms. And this is an internationally recognized methodology for measuring and monitoring surface elevation of, in this case, your marsh, which allows us to do cool things like monitoring how the marshes in the bay as a whole are keeping pace with sea level rise. We're getting a little harder to put these in now, so we'll be lucky if we get another rod in. This is rod number 6. So we'll get 6, possibly 7 rods in. Here in the Bay of Fundy, particularly on the Nova Scotia side, we've lost 80% of our tidal wetlands over the last 400 years. All wetlands are important because they are the kidneys of our marine environment. They are the base of our marine food web. There's a popular slogan, no wetlands, no seafood. Food security is a huge concern. 95% of our commercial, recreational, and Aboriginal important fish species can trace part of their life cycle back to these very wetlands that we're standing on. These are our equivalent of the rainforests in terms of their importance and significance and their productivity.
On this sweltering day, the excavator will continue to clear away the old dike and complete the third breach, while the rest of the team works into the evening, making sure this land is ready for tomorrow's tide. A little deeper in this beautiful valley, Tony has a similar wetland restoration project to show me that's a bit further along. I've never given much thought to the swampy places you see as you drive along a highway until now. This beautifully abundant landscape is the Belcher Street Marsh. And today I'm visiting Tony and Kayla to see what a restored, healthy wetland looks like 7 years after demo day.
Oh, here they are. So what is our position for bearing
Position 1.
Hello!
Hey, Zoe.
Hi! Hello!
How are you?
Good!
How was the walk in?
You guys have quite the commute. Oh my goodness. Welcome to the Belcher Street Marsh.
Wow, thank you. It's quite something.
It's rough as far as offices go.
Yep.
Today we are standing on the bank of the Gijiwoktuk River, or the Cornwallis River. In June of 2018, we had the opportunity to work with the Department of Agriculture and St. Mary's University to realign and upgrade the agricultural dike here to provide protection to core critical farmland, while at the same time decommissioning a section of the dike and restoring approximately 10 hectares of provincially significant and very important tidal wetland habitat.
So, what are you up to?
We are in the process of measuring our rod surface elevation tables. We have a series of these installed throughout the restoration site here. Before the dike was breached, we hauled out a whole series of really heavy rods, a couple of bags of concrete, and a demolition hammer, and used all of that to drive 28 feet of rod.
You do have a memory here,
Yeah.
don't you? It was a good day that day.
Down into the base of this marsh, and then set it all in concrete so that when we come out each year and install the receiver arm on top, we are able to then drop each of these pins down so that that pin lands in exactly the same spot it has for the last 7 years, so that I can then take the measurement of 15.5 centimeters.
You're noting it and then comparing the data to last year.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, back in the lab, we compare all of these numbers to last year's numbers.
What are you hoping that the data shows you this year?
What we hope to see in the data is clear indications that the marsh is heading towards looking the same as a natural intact marsh. Here in the bay, we've lost over 80% of our historical salt marshes, so we've lost a lot. So that means it's very important that the marshes that we still have, that we protect those. What we did is working. This marsh is looking exactly like we want it to look. The dike is doing its job. The marsh that has recovered is looking fantastic.
To the untrained eye, it's hard to tell the hallmarks of a healthy marsh. So Tony and Kayla offer to show me around.
Today, high tide is still down in the river channel, but if we come back in about 5 or 6 days' time, our feet would be wet.
Oh, wow. So it really comes up.
And so on the big spring tides, as we get deeper into the fall, we'll put water right up to the tree line.
So how are you also managing a body of water with this much force?
Well, we don't manage it. The water does what the water wants to do.
Tell me about the flora that we see here, because this also is a landscape like none other.
Yeah, so what we're really seeing here is a mix of New York aster, which is the plants with the purple flowers, and the seaside goldenrod, which is the yellow, and you can see there's quite a bit of it behind us as well. And actually in the distance here, the area that you're seeing that is predominantly with the seaside goldenrod was actually the footprint of the former dike that was in this section. And so we're standing on part of a dike here, there's a bit of foreshore where the old dike was, and then behind that is a restoration area.
Wow, it's a perfect time to look at it because it's all just mapped out in color.
Yeah, this is the great time of year to see it. At this time of year, we're actually starting to see all the colors come out, which makes it even more beautiful than it already is. You're actually able to see we've got some dead trees and a couple spots back here. And this would have been, they would have just been trees before the tidal flow came back.
Yeah, it's an odd feeling to be excited about seeing dead trees. When the restoration happens, we're going to see this band of trees along the edge of that marsh that have encroached onto the marsh surface. So the marsh grows right up to the edge, and then we've got the bank and those big healthy trees growing wonderfully where they're supposed to be, and they're very happy up there.
And I bet the birds are happy too with all of this amazing habitat.
Yeah.
Although the Belcher Street Marsh Restoration Project is complete, the monitoring work goes on for years, gathering the knowledge to help make science-informed decisions, to help protect communities, wildlife, wild spaces, and essential agricultural land as we move into an uncertain future.
The main species that I'm seeing in here right now is New York aster, and that's this purple one. And we've also got some of that seaside goldenrod in here as well.
Yep. Just a couple poking through. And lots of bees.
So many bees. Anybody who says that marshes don't always contain a lot of life just haven't been exposed to them at this time of year especially. They're buzzing with wildlife.
So many just in this square meter. It's amazing.
It's crazy to imagine that only about 5 years ago, this was probably bare ground.
That is impossible to imagine. It puts it in such a good perspective when it's just a few years and all of this can happen. It's so fertile. So I better let you get to work.
7 years in, the Belcher Street Marsh is a fully restored, thriving wetland ecosystem. And after the first big tide, the marshland in St. Croix is also on its way. In our dance with nature, human ingenuity has accomplished incredible things, but not without some unintended consequences. The rich agricultural lands along the valley have allowed us to thrive in this glorious place for generations. But as the climate changes, so must our dance with nature.
This is a fantastic example of exactly what we're trying to achieve with these dike realignment and tidal wetland restoration projects. If we didn't do this, trying to find a sustainable, resilient path forward for both our dike land systems and our marshes, and looking at both of those systems together, we set ourselves up for some very significant repercussions. These marshes, in combination with our dike land systems, are our protection.
We're kind of dancing with Mother Nature in these environments. And when you're dancing with Mother Nature, she leads. I think once we all realize that, then we can have a serious conversation about how we play a role in this dance.
I believe that saving land for the creatures and plants that live on them benefits not just them, but it benefits us as well. It's important because biodiversity is an expression of the complexity and beauty of life. There's a biodiversity crisis happening right now, and if we don't create spaces for those creatures and plants, we may lose them forever.
Make no mistake, change is coming, change is happening. Even though our actions historically might have driven a lot of this change with climate change, we're not necessarily in the driver's seat here. So we have to use all the tools of human creativity to adapt.